I think the majority of people believe that there has to be a consequence for your actions. It's almost biblical. The wrongdoer will be caught, the sinner will be punished, that your decisions have consequences. That you can't drink alcohol, get intoxicated, get behind the wheel of a vehicle, and escape punishment.
The blood alcohol level of a 16-year-old driver was 3 times the legal limit.
The sheriff says that teenage driver of the truck has not been arrested.
A psychologist testified saying the teen suffered from affluenza.
He was the product of an affluent but totally dysfunctional home.
That he was too spoiled to know right from wrong.
Economic factors and race, it's all connected.
Affluenza.
Affluenza.
Is this an actual thing?
No, absolutely not.
There are 2 justice systems in America, one for the rich and one for the 99%.
There was a universal response that what he got wasn't just, wasn't right. This case struck a nerve.
Affluenza.
Are you kidding me?
This is ridiculous.
The number one crime we're most likely to be a victim of is drunk driving. And there's no way to protect yourself against it. Texas clearly leads the nation in drunk driving deaths. I realized there wasn't a lot of resources available in our DWI cases. I decided that I was going to change that. So I began specializing in those cases, which led to me writing publications on how to try DWI cases. I directed schools on how to do that. Most of my friends who were prosecutors are now defense attorneys, and I understand their perspective that everybody is entitled to a proper defense, but for me, that didn't work. I wanted to be on the side of supporting victims and holding people accountable. When this case first came in, this was a big deal. This case was the worst of the worst. We've got a young man named Ethan Couch. He's 16 years old. He was living in this house his parents had moved out of on Burleson-Retta Road. There was some talk that he was there because he was getting it ready to sell. It was a real nice house. It was bigger than my house. Our house is nearly 3,000 square feet. This house is much bigger than that.
His parents lived about 30 miles from where Ethan was living.
They were parents that kind of looked the other way. His mother knew he was drinking. He was just living the life he wanted to live. It was a Saturday. He starts drinking around 6 o'clock. He's got a 19-year-old friend that is there with him, Garrett, who's 16, and Garrett's girlfriend. And they went out and picked up 4 more people. On the way back to the party, they decided they needed to get some more beer. Obviously, none of them were old enough to buy beer. But that wasn't a problem because they just went to Walmart, picked up a couple cases of beer, and walked it out the back door. And the way they did it made it clear this wasn't their first time stealing from a store like that. Once they got to the house, everybody started drinking, taking shots of Everclear, vodka. Ethan was taking drugs. He had Valium in his system. At around 11 o'clock, the group decided they wanted to go to a convenience store. Even with the alcohol the others had consumed, they knew Ethan shouldn't be driving, and there was an argument that ensued. He was just throwing stuff around and insisting that no one else was driving, and at some point, they just gave up. Everybody piled in the vehicle. We got 8 people in an F-350 truck, 6 in the cab, 2 people in the bed of the truck. And he just tears out of the driveway and starts heading down Burleson Retta Road. Driving into oncoming traffic lanes, driving faster. Everybody's yelling at him to slow down. He's driving angry, he's driving aggressively, and he loses control of his vehicle.
County 911, what is your emergency?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Earlier that night, a young woman named Brianna Mitchell was driving from a catering gig.
Brianna gets a flat tire and crashes into the culvert.
Eric Boyle, Holly, and his daughter Shelby heard a noise outside. They went out there and they found Brianna. She's very shook up. Eric's wife and daughter insist they want to stay there with Brianna until she's called her mother. So he just went in the house and got ready for bed. The Jennings family were celebrating a high school graduation. Pastor Brian Jennings was driving his truck from the party. A 12-year-old and a 13-year-old were riding with him. There's no need for him to stop, but he's compelled to do so because he wants to make sure that everybody's okay. He pulls off the road, he tells the boys, stay in the truck, and goes over there to talk to them. Meanwhile, Eric's back in his house. He describes the house shaking.
County 911, what is your emergency?
There's a multi-car accident out in front of my house.
Sir, how many people are injured, do you know?
1, 2, 3, multiple. I don't even know how many.
There's 4 or 5 kids. There's kids laying in ditches and streets.
Are you with the accident right now?
Oh, Lord. Oh, yes. There's another child in the ditch. Oh, my God.
By the time the police and paramedics started showing up, it was very difficult for them to figure out who's who and what's going on. The information from our reconstructionist tells us that Ethan's car goes off the road, hits Brianna's car. Ethan's car goes further. It hits the back of Brian Jennings' truck. The force of the contact breaks the back window. The tables in the back of the car go through there, hit Lucas and Isaiah in the back of the head, driving it into the street where it hits another car. Ethan's truck ends up against a tree, throws the 2 people in the back of the vehicle into the street. It's just ultimate chaos. While everybody else was trying to find loved ones and figure out what happened, Ethan fled the scene. Off on the roadway, about a quarter of a mile from where this crash occurred,
2 people were driving by in their car when they saw a body lying in the grass.
And so they stop and shake him awake, and it's Ethan. Ethan's response is just some garbled conversation about, I'm Ethan Couch. I can get you out of this. And, you know, it's like totally bizarre. It's like, you know, get me out of what? I didn't do anything here. At some point, Ethan decides, I'm gonna get out of here, and leaves right into the barbed wire fence. So he doesn't get very far. The police come down there and place him under arrest. Ethan was combative to the very end, arguing, not cooperating the least bit with law enforcement. One of the paramedics related that Ethan was talking about how, I've thought about going to medical school, I could do that. He still had an attitude. With the devastation and chaos that is there at the scene, he was just kind of full of himself, and it was just very surreal to them.
At the time of Brian's death, he and I had been married 19 years. It would have been 20 years in August. I remember once telling me, he was like, if it's a guy and if he looks like he has it under control, he wouldn't stop. But if it was a woman by herself or whatever, he'd always try to stop. And in that situation, he saw 3 women. I miss that relationship that we had. I miss my kids having a father. I used to always tell Brian, nothing could ever happen to you, because I was like, our kids are going to hell in a handbasket. I knew that I was the person who made sure everybody had everything they needed, and he was like the disciplinarian, and he was an amazing father. My kids, every now and then, they'll be like, oh yeah, you remember when Dad made us do this? Or Dad only let us get so many items from the dollar menu, and if we got a drink, that counted as one of our items. Just, he was fun.
This is a picture from their wedding day. And I was his best man. All of us ended up in the pool at the end of the night, and so that was fun. That's really, I haven't thought of that in 30 years. This is a photo of us rock climbing at Mineral Well State Park, and spent an entire Saturday there. Gosh, certainly it's hard to see the good times and what we don't do anymore. I got the call from our friend Ron Gonzalez that, in fact, there was a terrible wreck in Burleson, and he said Brian had passed away. Looks like a drunk driving accident. The range of feelings was upset and anger and shock and disbelief. The wreck happened about 15 minutes before Father's Day started. Father's Day has become pretty hard for me for that reason, that he passed away on that day.
The results from the accident investigation are stunning. 4 were struck and killed.
A 16-year-old driver involved in a deadly chain reaction accident.
When I saw Ethan on the news, he looked extremely young to me. I was pretty shocked that he was even driving. The news is saying he's 16 and a half and driving without a license, and that he had caused this. It was just so much shock.
We knew pretty early on that this was a case that had money. 2 very good attorneys that I knew well were hired to represent Ethan. It didn't bother me. At the end of the day, the facts are the facts, and we knew our opponent. We were prepared for battle. The charges we were going to go for were intoxication manslaughter. We were going to go for the max. We were going to ask for 20 years. About a couple weeks before this case was supposed to go to trial, they called us and said, he's going to plead guilty. We were going to go directly into the punishment phase. And it's basically going to be a battle of rehabilitation versus accountability. It'd be an understatement to say that the victims' families were not families of privilege. These family members are trying to decide how to pay their bills. How are they going to pay to give the medical treatment this person that is going to be just one step above vegetative for the rest of his life? How does Eric deal with the loss of his wife and daughter? How does Ryan's wife pay the bills and support her 3 children? I mean, that was the contrast.
We all expected some type of jail time for Ethan because the prosecutor said, look, we're looking at probably a minimum of 2 years here with an outset maximum of 10. Everybody felt that there would be some justice.
Ethan shows up. He had a new haircut. He was wearing a shirt that was too big for him. That's a standard tactic to make a defendant look younger, is put clothes on him that don't fit. He seemed very subdued. He was on a level of medication that my toxicologist just said, wow. I guess one rationale for them sedating him would be that he was suffering from trauma and he needed sedation. Another reason is to make sure that he doesn't act out or behave in any improper way. That's what the cynical person, or me, might think. Any question I had about whether this was someone who might be giving testimony, I mean, there was no way.
In court during the trial, he seemed very flat and emotionless to me. He didn't look or act remorseful. He didn't care.
We had probably lined up about 24 witnesses that we were going to call in this case. And, you know, hundreds of photographs, lab reports, and we called representatives of all the family members that were affected. I was absolutely confident this is one of the strongest cases I'd ever worked on. I felt like we'd done a good job showing why Ethan needed incarceration. And then, you know, the defense started putting on their case. We don't get mutual discovery in Texas, so the state never knows exactly who the defense is going to call as a witness. We got a list of potential experts, we got names, and so we started focusing on that, just trying to anticipate who they're going to call, what are they going to say, what are they going to do. There's always going to be a psychologist or some kind of expert testifying on behalf of the defendant. Dick Miller was someone that testified for the defense quite often. He gets up on the witness stand and starts giving his testimony.
In any court proceeding, the first thing we do is to say, did he do it? The second part is, why? Why did that happen? This kid, he had this giant garage full of vehicles, and he had his pick of the litter. And Dick Miller would have taken that as a 15-year-old.
He talks about how his practice is mostly focused on something called affluenza.
This was a classic case of affluenza.
When I heard that word, it was just like, what? I smiled. I leaned over and asked my partner, I said, what? He said, affluenza? We're going to look it up as quickly as possible. There's this murmur behind us. He's painting this picture that because Ethan's parents didn't do a good job with him and gave him everything he wanted, he's not capable of making good decisions, and therefore he should not be held accountable for this. I've dealt with other situations where a bad family situation can cause something. I mean, I've seen that before. But turning that upside down and saying, you know, life was just too good. It was just like, what? I felt better after Dick Miller testified about our odds of getting some pen time than I did before he testified.
Judge, I know what the solution is to that. I said, why don't we send this kid away to California? I usually think I can get to a parent and get them to get involved, but I didn't see that here. So I said, why don't we send this kid away for 2 years? We found some people doing treatment out there in Newport Beach, and the only time the parents could see him is in supervision. Judge, please let that kid go to treatment for 2 years instead of going to juvenile jail. And he can get training on how to be a citizen. Well, his dad could afford the treatment.
We checked out the website, and it was yoga classes, horseback riding. And then the judge started laying out her position.
She said, they're doing a rehab program in the jail. 34 times I've sent people down there. All they learn how to do is be a better thief. And every time they come out and reoffend, nobody did well. She says, that's not very good percentage, 0 for 34. And I thought, oh my God. The judge said rehabilitation within adolescent jails just doesn't work. 2 years at the treatment center of Dr. Miller's choice. He'll supervise it. He'll keep up with it. Good evening, everyone.
Everybody was so upset. My closest friend, Kevin, who was the first on the scene that night, he got up and yelled and stormed out of the courtroom and kicked the door open. And Kevin was expressing for everyone what they were feeling.
It was just absolutely ridiculous.
Sorry, Richard, but
you give me a jury in this case, we're going to have a different outcome.
I stood up and I thought, oh my God, I got to get out of here.
The hearing ended and the room just exploded. And the lead story was affluenza, and that the judges somehow bought into this idea.
Verdict in Texas sparking new outrage.
Shockingly light sentence.
I am sick and too rich for jail.
This is preposterous. A condition called affluenza.
He's rich and he's white.
And it worked.
You got paid money to get him off the hook.
You know he walked because he's rich, and the greatest irony is they even dared to use that as a defense.
Dr. whatever that guy was.
This is ridiculous. This is a travesty.
He said I need to have my license taken away.
The psychologist should be ashamed of himself.
Based on what?
This is a justification for murderous behavior.
People got so upset.
Palpable anger from the middle class.
It's disgusting.
This kid getting off.
Well, this kid doesn't know the consequence of his actions, so let's make sure that we keep that going.
He didn't get off. He pled guilty to 4 counts of intoxication manslaughter.
There are 2 justice systems in America, one for the rich and one for the 99%.
I don't think there is a separate system. The laws for juveniles completely different than for adults.
He killed 4 people, yes?
Like, did he pick them out like bowling pins and run over them?
Well, no, he was too drunk to do that.
There's nothing just about the criminal justice system.
I really don't think
the real
problem I think that's
I understand.
So ask your doctor if being rich is right for you.
You know, the affluenza news hit a couple of days later. It's not a bit. I mean, it's deeply upsetting that went on, and it was layer upon layer. That made it really a lot worse for Shauna and the kids.
When they announced the sentencing, I was just kind of numb. Now how do I process these next steps and dealing with this with my kids?
I felt like this is hopeless. It felt like a large miscarriage of justice. To hear grown men putting together a series of excuses that affluenza was reasonable enough to get somebody out of jail.
Even after the sentencing, I said, mark my words, he's going to be back in the system. I told him, I said, look, Ethan is going to mess up. And when he messes up, I promise you, we will be there. And we waited for that to happen. I was at this big event speaking to MAD supporters, and there's a reporter that I recognize waving me over and wants to know what I think of the videotape. And I had no idea what they were saying. Looks like a beer pong celebration.
Right there, that's Couch, laughing hysterically without a care in the world.
It was absolutely shocking.
Your boy Ethan Couch violating probation.
Couch's probation states that he cannot drive, drink alcohol, or use drugs.
Well, when is his next probation meeting? Oh, he missed his probation meeting. Okay, this is just getting even easier.
There is a warrant out for his arrest.
We will mount a vigorous investigation of this, and if he's violating his probation, he's going to be sent to prison. And then the next day,
Authorities say he's gone missing.
Ethan's missing. Where in the world is Ethan Couch?
The manhunt for 18-year-old Ethan Couch and his mother, Tanya Couch, is intensifying.
And then we find out that Tanya's missing.
Believed to be on the run with him.
Tanya had taken $30,000 out of her bank account and had left a note for the father saying that she was taking Ethan and he was never going to see either one of them again.
The FBI and U.S. Marshals
have gotten a directive to find
the most wanted teenager in the country.
Rich and privileged
American teenager Ethan Couch.
It is a felony to aid and abet a fugitive.
We're going to come after you. We're going to find you wherever you are.
Every channel I turn on, there's a story about Ethan Couch.
Investigators now have international resources.
Affluenza might not save him this time.
It was reported that Ethan and his mother crossed into Mexico through Tijuana and then continued driving until they landed in the resort town of Puerto Vallarta.
3 weeks go by. There's local efforts, national efforts, international efforts, and one day, he used a credit card to order Domino's Pizza in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
Authorities traced his whereabouts to the fancy hotel where Ethan and his mother were staying.
They're not smart enough to get away with this. I mean, they're not masterminds.
But when cops showed up, the Couches had already checked out.
They find him.
This morning, the first images of Ethan and Tanya Couch on the run in Mexico. You see Ethan Couch and his mother entering this butcher shop.
Then a tip from a hotel worker led Mexican cops to the Couches.
They immediately get down there and get him arrested.
A notorious teenager,
his 48-year-old mother,
finally arrested in Mexico.
He was brought back from Mexico. He was in the juvenile justice court.
His violations are on his juvenile probation. Juvenile has not proven itself to be a punishing body. So we determined we're going to focus on getting him transferred into adult court. This time, they're going to lose. And they do.
Now we've got him in big boy jail. He is a small person, he's young, he's gonna get hurt or get killed. How do you punish him and still protect him at the same time? And they put him in solitary confinement.
Brian worked really hard on his image in high school, and he did pretty well at it. You know, Brian really cared for kids like Ethan. Brian and I grew up with, just a lot of rebellion. We were, doing things like Ethan underage. And so, I related to the teenage stupidity, drinking and partying and all the above. I realized that Ethan was a little bit too similar to all of us. Brian had his senior graduation trip down to South Padre Island, and he almost lost a friend to alcohol poisoning. His heart stopped. The EMTs showed up, and they performed CPR, and their friend lived. He came back from that trip a very different person. He began to be focused on being a youth pastor. I was very supportive of that because he was so good at it. He had a lot of natural leadership qualities. It was encouraging to young kids who didn't know what they wanted to be. He felt called to kids that were making bad decisions or self-destructive decisions, the way we used to be. I just had this nagging question of, is there any hope for this kid at all? That question just bugged me. And it took me some months to work through this conflict, but I certainly felt very strong that I should meet with the young man that took the life of my friend.
Couch spends 23 hours a day in his cell. No TV, no contact with other inmates.
Oh, there was absolutely nothing easy about this. I don't want to see him. I don't even want to be in the courtroom with him. I didn't like doing this. I didn't like meeting with Ethan. but it was something I knew I had to do. When I first met Ethan, it was on a video conference when he was in solitary confinement. I was just looking at a screen. I was looking at him through a food slot, so I saw maybe half of his face. And he was wondering, what is this guy showing up for? Just really not believing, that a victim would show up. I really questioned, what in the world am I doing here? And I pressed through anyway. I said, look, I'm not attempting to change you. I don't know if that's even possible. Brian was a youth pastor. I worked as a youth pastor when I was young too, and we worked with kids like you. Just want to see if there's hope for you. And I said, maybe we could meet a second time. He said, yeah, I think I'd like to visit with you again. As he got moved into general population and we actually had meetings that were between the glass, he was growing in honesty. And I learned quite a bit about Ethan's life. By the time I met Ethan face to face, he was really beyond parenting from his natural parents. I met him at 19 years old.
My name is Christy McWilliams. I'm Ethan's half-sister. I always tell everybody Ethan was like my first child. We've all been reached out to numerous times. The media always want to know the story of what happened with Ethan. Wanting to know about the accident, not really wanting to know the backstory. I've never done an interview like this ever. Never spoke out about any of this, kind of kept it to myself, and I've just felt that I need to speak and tell this story that no one ever really knew. There's always a mess underneath that festers up and then it boils over. You get the boiled over part of this wreck, and it's like, well, what started all this? Growing up, I remember going and babysitting Ethan. Well, he was the baby. He was just a baby. Fred wasn't our dad, so it wasn't like he was taking care of his kids. We were someone else's kids. He never really said that to us, but I think he said that to my mom a lot. I remember when they started dating, and I would just cry because I hated Fred so much. He had a small business, Cleveland Sheet Metal. Fred was a very driven person. I mean, he did work hard for what he had. But he was always angry. It was like you had to walk on eggshells at the house. Like he was my mom would just get her ass beat. And Fred had a little bit of pull with the Lake Worth Police Department. Fred would walk out there and just kind of smooth things over and they would leave. Then Mom got pregnant and I thought, oh my God, she's stuck with Fred forever. One day I was in my room, she was pregnant. And I'm hearing him yell and scream, and I run to the door. He opens up the door, and he's right there. And the first thing he says is, I didn't hit your mom. It was always Fred trying to hurt. And he did go to jail that night, but I think that was the only time that he ever went to jail for laying hands on my family at all. That was very discouraging growing up, not seeing someone be held responsible for their actions.
When's the last time you recall disciplining Ethan for anything?
I don't remember.
My mom, she thought, you've seen too much ugliness. Like, all I want you to see from me is good. She tried to not be the bad guy ever. She tried to overcompensate big time because on the other end had been so much chaos. We had a nice house, nice cars, a suite at the Cowboy Stadium. We're happy, we're happy, we're happy, we're happy. Here's some money, we're happy.
At any time he was under 16, he was never to be driving by himself. You allowed that behavior to happen.
Yes.
There was not a lot of structure there. My mom was not too good about tough love. Mom couldn't give discipline to Ethan, and that just kind of taught him no boundaries. As he got older, he saw what was going on with Fred and all that came with it. He was 15, and I will never forget. He finally kind of stood up to Fred, and I got a phone call. He was like, "You got to come pick me up. I'm walking down Silver Creek." I'm like, "What? What are you doing?" And he was like, "I got kicked out." I said, "Baby, you're 15. You can't get kicked out."
Just 4 months before this crash happened, a police officer came upon a vehicle that was off the road. What he discovered was Ethan Couch. He was clearly intoxicated, doesn't have a license. Even more distressing was a half-naked 13-year-old girl passed out drunk in the car and unresponsive. The police, of course, called for a parent. Ethan's mother comes to the scene, and it's clear that their main concern is keeping this from his father.
That's what's always so difficult to hear about things like this is this could have been avoided. Like, Brian could still be here if there were any interventions that maybe the family would have listened to. A moment like that was an opportunity that was wasted. It was a time of intervention that could have prevented the tragedy. But just a few months before the big accident, proper action wasn't taken.
He's 15 and living by himself. I had told Fred and my mom both, he'll kill himself. Like, you can't do that. He went balls to the wall. Drugs, drinking, fireworks, parties. I had told my mom, "You have to get Ethan out of there. I know that he's having people over there." And she kept saying, "Ethan is safer over there away from his dad." And I have, guilt. Because I knew, and I should have just gone over there, and I should have just got him. I should have just gone over there. I haven't been able to really get past that.
Somehow these things are reminding me something my own father has told me many years ago. He said, "At what age are you actually going to be responsible for yourself? How old do you have to be to take responsibility?" For months, I had a really hard time determining how I needed to relate to Ethan. In my thinking, it morphed a little bit into, well, maybe I can just relate like an uncle. There were gaps in fathering in him. How to grow up and how to be responsible. Things he didn't receive from his dad, and situations he had to make his own decision when he was way too young to be making them. He said, "Ethan, if you had not have pleaded guilty in your case, there would have never been hope for you, because if you're just pretending that you didn't do what you did, you'd just be living a lie for the rest of your life." Ethan had decided he was never worthy of forgiveness. He certainly thought he was ruined for the rest of his life. I realized that this young man needs forgiveness more than anybody I've ever heard of. It was time to visit with Shauna and their kids. There were lots of tears in that meeting. There was a sense of, why would you even spend time with this person? At the end of it all, Shauna brought the visit to a close, and she said,
had the roles been reversed and I had died, not a doubt in my mind that Brian would have reached out to Ethan and would have forgiven and loved him. Not a doubt in my mind.
I met with Ethan roughly 80 to 90 times over 2 years. I just asked him flat out. I said, a lot of people have looked at you, Ethan, and said he's not remorseful. He doesn't look remorseful. And he said, of course I've felt terrible since this happened. And I said, there's hope. I hear it, I see it. I don't think you're faking it.
Ethan continues to be remorseful, as he has been from the first day.
If you had remorse, can you just say you're sorry?
Glad to be out. Sorry.
Excuse me.
Ethan, I have anything to say. Ethan, what would you say to your victims?
I think he got away. And that's not right. How about an apology? How about just taking some unabashed, non-lawyer filtered responsibility for what you did, and in your own words, express that you're sorry and demonstrate to these victims that you have learned something and what that something is.
You don't get away with that. You go to sleep every single night seeing those faces. You don't get away with it. He's gone through so much counseling, you know, taking the steps to get through what he needs to get through. There's no way in the world someone can go through that much and not change.
Why is he not saying anything publicly?
He doesn't know what to say. He's afraid that if he does say something, either way, it's going to be bad. It's like he just wants to disappear from this. I've encouraged him to speak. I think that he should.
I'm not naive to think that this might not resurface in Ethan. There could be a relapse, if you want to call it that. I think Ethan could fall again, and I certainly hope, and I do pray that he doesn't.
I think he's paid an incredible price. And I don't want to be the affluenza kid, do you? How much money would it take for you to be? I don't know. There's no price.
Has he changed? Has it worked?
I'm more focused on hoping that everybody watching this has learned something from it. I know that I had conversations with my own children and heard from them how much this case is being discussed among their friendly groups. In a good way, as kind of a warning that this is what happens. This is what can happen when you don't hold yourself accountable.
My name is Christopher Duff, and I'm a senior district attorney for the County of Orange. It's really one of the weirdest cases I've ever encountered.
This case was batshit crazy from the very beginning.
Everything about this is lunacy.
It was a shocking plot against the PTA president.
These are not my drugs. I'm not going to jail.
The amount of time they spent to ruin this woman makes no sense at all.
A couple so picture perfect, their wedding portrait was featured on TheKnot.com.
This couple had a complete breakdown.
She lied.
These two thought they were above the law.
This is when I needed someone, and you turned your back on me. And I will not survive this. I always thought they would get away with it. So this is my old neighborhood. These are the apartments over there, and I'm just gonna go through this neighborhood because it's kind of cute. We had a cool little place right across from the school, and I was super excited every day to come to the school and volunteer. Yeah, I ran the Meet the Masters art program and the after-school program, and I was on the PTA.
She was always willing to volunteer for everything. She could never say no.
I logged in some hours.
The schools, that's mainly why a lot of people come here to Irvine.
People came from everywhere to live in Irvine.
Irvine is very much a master planned community.
It's cookie cutter type neighborhood, very wealthy.
The houses all look the same.
Irvine does not have any liquor stores or bars.
All the kids walk to school or ride their bikes.
You've got sidewalks everywhere. Everything is green. It just feels really, really safe.
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 It's just a very safe place to live.
Irvine Police.
Yes, hi. My daughter's a student at Plaza Vista Elementary School.
We're at Plaza Vista Elementary School. This is where the crime occurred.
I was in the front office and I saw a police car drive up and was asking if Kelly Peters was here. I went back and got Kelly, and she didn't know what it was about. She's saying, she thought that her husband get in an accident or, she didn't know what had happened.
And I ran up there, and I was in tears. Did something happen to Bill? And they were like, no, calm down, no, nothing happened to your husband. I was like, oh, okay, so what's up, And he said, can you get the keys to your car? Very, very stern. I said, sure, but why?
There was a report of reckless driving, somebody impaired, maybe a DUI driver, somebody that was impaired driving on campus.
And then he took her outside and I guess walked over to her car.
I can see that my car is surrounded by police, and at the time there was a helicopter flying over. And I joked and said, is there a dead body in my car or something? And he stopped me. He said, I need you to stop talking.
So you specifically saw her place something behind her seat?
The phone call mentioned that you had put drugs in the backseat of your car. And I was like, what? No.
They walked up to the car and just a quick plain view search of the vehicle from the outside could see drugs in a pretty big bag of marijuana just in plain view.
They went in the pocket and started pulling out bags of pills. This was all of a sudden very serious.
Drugs in a car on campus during school hours are a big deal. In the bag, we found about 30 Vicodin pills, and then we found the second bag, which had about 10 pills in it, which later we found out were Percocet. At the time, to have those drugs without a prescription was a felony.
When I first heard that they had found drugs in Kelly's car, my initial reaction was, there's no way. Then you start getting your second thoughts, right? I mean, Kelly's free-loving, she's hippie, maybe she's got pot in her car, and maybe she forgot to take it out.
People started to question, oh, is Kelly for real? Oh, is she the nice, bubbly lady? Is she on drugs? Is she selling drugs? Did she bring those drugs to school to sell?
So you start thinking like, oh gosh, maybe she did.
They pulled out the marijuana, put it on the hood of the police car, and then bags of pills, and then a pipe, and putting it on top of the police car.
It was right when school was being dispersed, and kids were coming out, and her daughter was coming out. She was going to see this.
Parents are driving by, kids are getting out of school, and I was like, please put the drugs away. This is going to be in the minds of these children. Please put the drugs somewhere else, please. And I was just begging him.
She was on her knees, crying, begging that he doesn't arrest her.
They brought me inside of the school in front of everybody. They took me inside this conference room. They did a drug test, drunk test.
She kind of seemed believable as she was doing this. He still didn't completely rule her out as a suspect. He's like, I don't think she did it, but I'm not positive. She gave consent for the officers to search her house. Once he searched the house, he didn't find anything that would tie her to the possession of the drugs.
They asked me questions, the same questions over and over again. Do you think your husband's having an affair? Do you think that maybe he planted him? I was like, what? Why would you even say that? Well, do you have any enemies? And I said, no, I have no enemies. Nobody would do this to me. And then I remember Heather, the principal, saying, you do have an enemy, you're not remembering. What about Jill and Kent Easter? And then she said, oh my gosh, it's been exactly a year. It's been exactly a year. Well, I have an enemy. I guess I do have an enemy.
Hi, my name is Annette Homewood, and I am auditioning for the role of Jill Easter.
Jill's 2 common marks.
Hi, I'm Jill Easter.
Hi, I'm Jill Easter. I grew up in Orange County.
Of course, I wanted to go to the best school, so I went to UC Berkeley, became a, practicing lawyer.
And that's where I met my husband, Kent.
That young love.
Hi, I'm auditioning for the role of Kent Easter.
Oh, she definitely wears the pants.
She's the boss, and I just can't say no to her.
We eventually decided we wanted to have a family. We moved back down to Irvine.
It's the best place to raise kids.
They have fantastic schools. I had to stop practicing, of course, because I just felt like I couldn't really devote all my attention to anything but my kids.
I mean, I knew Jill, like, superficially. She was nice, pleasant. She's a beautiful woman, so she always looked really good. Her hair looked great, her makeup looked great, her clothes looked great. She always came off as very polished and very put together.
Kent Easter and Jill Easter, you know, they're wealthy individuals.
Kent Easter was a partner at a very big law firm, making a lot of money. Jill Easter went to a very good law school.
They're both lawyers, so that carries its own extra sort of status, I think.
Jill Easter was one of our parents, and she had a child who was in first grade, a little boy. She was very concerned about her kids.
A mother always keeps her children safe. They have GPS detectors. Oh, they didn't have this back then, did they? Okay.
Most parents in Irvine I would characterize as intense, so I didn't think that she was any different than any other parents.
When you have kids, something happens as a mother, and you will do anything to protect them. You will do anything to make sure that they have the best life possible, because honestly, they are my greatest achievement.
Who is Jill Easter? I described her to the jury as someone who was highly educated, entitled, vindictive, and capable of doing almost anything.
I've never seen someone like Jill Easter. You know, someone you read about but would never believe actually exists.
Pretty much the last person in the world you would want to have be in their crosshairs. You got to understand, it wasn't just that Kelly was detained for a couple hours at the school. She had been harassed and tormented by these two for months. And it didn't start with the drug planting, it started much earlier. And it all got set off by one incident at school.
Jill was a little late getting there. She came inside and was asking where the kids were from the class. And I said, well, most of them are gone, but your child should be here soon. Let me get Kelly.
I was having a very normal day. All the after-school classes had gotten out. I match up the kids with their parents and make sure everybody goes home safely with the right person.
Kelly's procedure was that she would have all the kids come through the school.
So if you didn't come up with me the first time, the door would lock. Sometimes the kids don't come in with me the first time through the back door. They like to stay behind and help the coaches clean up. And Luke was one of those kids.
I guess he was banging on the back door, crying. And then the teacher saw him, and the teacher walked him around to the front of the school. And Jill got very upset, the fact that her son was so upset.
I feel terrible. Please accept my apology.
Jill was screaming and yelling at Kelly, and with that, Kelly said, come on, let's go outside.
I just did my best as a representative of the school. I just stood there and took it.
Kelly was trying to calm her down, and she was getting more and more upset.
Finally, I just looked at her and said, I'm not doing this anymore, and I walked away. I made the mistake that day of telling Jill that her son was slow lining up.
So it was just that he was slow in getting to the door, like a straggler, like lots of kids are. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, Jill Easter took that to mean that she was calling her son slow, dim-witted. And that's what set it off.
The next day, Jill Easter came in and wanted to talk to the principal. She was trying to get Kelly fired from her volunteer job.
And the school, rightly so, said no way. And they investigated it too, because they take every complaint like that seriously, and they wanted to vet it and make sure nothing inappropriate happened, and they cleared Kelly. But that didn't satisfy Jill Easter.
Jill started a campaign against me. She would stand out in front of the school. She had made a flyer to hand out to people, really to smear my name.
People need to be warned about Kelly Peters. So I shared these flyers with everybody involved. I've seen her act in ways that are despicable. This school will not be safe. Your children will not be safe until Kelly Peters is out of here.
Every day I woke up to some bizarre thing that was happening to me.
The Easters would not let this go. Each week it seemed to escalate. They complained to the superintendent. They complained to the state of California.
After that, she filed a police report saying, oh, she's harassing my son.
Nobody was listening to me.
Everyone kept telling her no, which seemed to enrage her more and more.
She did not understand who she was doing this to.
So after that, she got her husband, Kent Easter, to file a lawsuit in Orange County Superior Court against Kelly Peters.
I love my wife, don't get me wrong, she's great. But sometimes, well, she can take things a little too far.
The fact that she was an attorney scared me. I believe there were already 3 lawsuits happening.
You don't want to mess with 2 attorneys, of course.
I mean, legal fees are expensive. When you go up against a powerful lawyer, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself.
She had me followed by private investigators.
Here's a copy of the restraining order that Jill Easter filled out.
She filed a restraining order against me for trying to kill her.
The Easters systematically tried to destroy Kelly Peters.
There was no indication that any of the allegations made by Jill were substantiated in any way.
No, I'm not going to let this go. Not until she is gone.
We even had an email from Jill to Kent Easter saying, I need the following things done.
Exhausted the criminal code for charges against her.
I want to do a background check on Kelly Peters.
I want to serve her while she's at school tomorrow. I want to include a settlement agreement which states she cannot volunteer in any position that would put her in a school.
Kelly Peters is not nice. It's all a facade.
Why are we letting this no one abuse our son and then trash our family? Why?
You know, all this stress is starting to get to me. I'm starting to be paranoid. I mean, it was awful. And eventually it got very quiet. I remember having conversations with several of my friends. I think she finally gave up. I think we're finally okay. Irvine was rated the #1 city, safest city to live in. And I'm like, I beg to differ. But I knew in my gut something was wrong.
Irvine Police.
Yes, hi. I was calling because my daughter's a student at Plaza Vista Elementary School.
Uh-huh.
Concerned one of the parent volunteers there may be using drugs. I saw a car driving very erratically. It looked like she had some like pills or something.
Okay. What is your name?
My name is Jay.
I've listened to that many times. Kind of thought it was suspicious the way it came out. There was a distinct stutter in there that we caught.
There may be under the influence.
He was volunteering a ton of information without even being asked.
And it has like the rim that says only for the groovy.
It seemed scripted. It seemed like somebody was faking an accent. They'd kind of go back and forth between having an accent and not having an accent.
And what's your last name?
Chandrasekhar.
How do you spell that?
CHANDRASEKHR.
So we also, as part of the case, played a recording of the phone call to the Irvine police. He adopts a phoney Indian accent.
My name's Yvonne Prado. I'm a dispatcher here with the Irvine Police Department. On February 16th, 2011, I took a call that struck me as suspicious. The gentleman went from speaking with no accent, and then he switched to an Indian accent, like midway through the call, and then it just kind of veered off into kind of raising red flags.
I think Jay Chandrasekhar is an actor from the Broken Lizard comedy movies.
There you have it. You're doing it all wrong. You got to open your throat. Relax.
You'll note he knew how to spell Chandrasekhar exactly.
CHANDRASEKHR.
Okay. Alrighty, we're going to go out there and make sure everything's okay, all right?
Oh, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Tracing the 911 call turned out to be very challenging.
Irvine Police.
The call came into our front desk, and because of that, we actually didn't get the incoming phone number. We had to search warrant our own phone company to get the call that came in. It's crazy because but he's smart, he didn't call 911. That call had been initiated from the Island Hotel in the city of Newport Beach. The detective that went out there worked for hours working with hotel staff to get that surveillance video. There's multiple cameras that followed the suspect throughout the hotel. He walked in the front doors of the hotel on foot holding a notepad all the way into the business center when the phone call was made to Irvine PD.
The police came back quite a bit after the incident and kept on asking questions. And then when I saw the video, it was very noticeable who it was. Kent Easter.
My name is Jay Chandrasekhar. Chandrasekhar.
And then, of course, I heard the voice and I went, and that's his voice.
Kent Easter was a partner at one of the biggest, most white shoe law firms in Orange County.
This is a photo of the Island Hotel. Kent Easter's law firm was in this building.
I mean, he had offices in Fashion Island in Newport Beach. It's kind of an ivory tower.
Right outside of his office? I mean, my goodness, who does that?
What is going on here? I mean, this is reality TV stuff.
I guess they didn't realize there was video cameras, in hotels.
We tried to do a simultaneous search warrant at both locations. Kent Easter's home, as well as his place of employment, which is a law firm in Newport Beach.
I was told that they were going to be hard to arrest, is because they were both attorneys.
There was a lot of thought that just went into how do you get an attorney who committed a crime to talk? We were working 15, sometimes 20-hour days to get to this point. A lot of investigative work went into this. Kent was the goal, really, to get him and find a place that he would likely talk to us, and then following him and doing some surveillance, we knew where he would park. We knew what time he started work. He developed a pattern. He was a little surprised, but he played it off really good.
Got any idea what the heck we're talking about?
No, I don't.
Nothing like that?
Yeah.
Okay. It'll come full circle to you. I know you're a smart man.
Yeah, I am a smart guy, and I appreciate what you're saying and the fact that obviously you have been interested in me for some reason. Actually, I have no idea what incident was or wasn't happening with Peters.
He denied knowing anything about the day that the drugs were planted in a car, any police activity or anything like that. He wasn't telling the truth, but he was locking himself into a lie. These two had a very good knowledge of the law, and they also hired two of the best attorneys in Southern California. Sometimes you might just request maybe text messages or call record logs, but we requested tower information, really everything that you could possibly ask for the phones, we did.
They had their cell phones rather than using any type of burner cell phone.
We could see that they were calling each other during the early morning hours. We could also see that their phones were pinging off of towers next to Kelly Peters' residence. So this is the apartment complex that Kelly lived in. It actually happened at about between 2:30 and 4:30 a.m.
I mean, they went in the middle of the night and planted these drugs.
Some crooks would leave their phones at home or turn their phones off. But in this case, both Jill and Kent's phone were on and they were communicating. We could see all of this.
I was shocked that they could have anything to do with this. They're two attorneys. Why would they ever risk something like that?
It offended me personally that somebody in the legal community would do such a thing.
Didn't treat her like someone, as educated as they were. I think that they thought they were powerful people that could order people around and were used to getting what they wanted.
Every day started to become so stressful for me because I just didn't know what was going to happen.
They thought they were above the law.
Were they?
Clearly not.
So before anything happened, I took on more responsibility at the school. They gave me a desk at the front. I had a real place there. I thought, I want to work with kids. I just loved it. So I decided that I was going to get my teaching credential and be a substitute teacher. And the teachers would say, if you get your teaching credential, we will for sure hire you. That was my big plan.
Did you do that?
No. Okay. Drugs were planted in my car instead. Yeah.
She's been called the mom from hell, but Jill Easter says everyone has the facts all wrong. Jill is here speaking out for the first time in an exclusive interview. Do you hold her responsible for not properly supervising and protecting your son?
I'm not even sure it was negligence.
What do you mean?
I think it was purposeful.
What would be her motive?
She would have to answer that.
There were parents that didn't want me at the school. They were convinced that I did this. I wasn't allowed to say anything. I could not defend myself. I was not allowed to say anything to anybody.
Kelly and her family, I was immediately struck by how affected they were by all of this. They were scared.
I would be out walking my dogs and someone would yell out the window, "We don't want you at the school anymore."
And then after the drug planting, there was a whole year before the Easters got arrested. So Kelly and her family were living in fear. What on earth are these crazy people gonna do to us next?
I was transferred into a new unit. I was just kind of going through the new files, learning about each one. And I came across the Easter case that was still being worked on and hadn't been filed yet.
Well, I mean, the facts of this case are from a movie. They are almost unbelievable.
Ironically, even though Jill Easter wrote a book about committing the perfect crime, amazingly, the Easters left so many clues.
Jill Easter was an amateur author who self-published this sort of racy novel about an MMA fighter who got embroiled in this drug scheme and was trying to commit the perfect crime.
Admitting the existence of her desire felt like jumping off a cliff.
But it was a big deal to Sunny because she already knew what she wanted: sex.
I don't have the right underwear for this. Then take them off.
Kent Easter actually narrated a promo video for the book.
If you knew how to commit the perfect crime, would you do it? The crime is shockingly simple and 100% possible. No one will get hurt, and there's no way you can get caught.
Holding House, a novel by Ava Bjork.
And they posted it on YouTube. When? The day after they planted the drugs in Kelly Peters' car.
Oh, my goodness. Why don't you just say, here I am, I did it.
The detectives from Irvine Police called me and said, hey, what's going on with this case? Are you going to file it? And I looked at it and I said, I think it's ready to go. There was cellular phone evidence. They used their own personal cell phones rather than burner cell phones. We had the DNA evidence. I mean, they planted drugs without wearing any gloves, which is mind-boggling to me that people so smart wouldn't think about leaving their DNA.
I mean, who does that? It's insane.
They were told that they would not be arrested, that they'd be allowed to turn themselves in, and we decided that that was not the appropriate way to handle the case, that they shouldn't be given special treatment. That was a shock to them and a blow to them.
Doesn't matter if you're rich or powerful or you're a lawyer. You break the law, you're going down.
Chad. Say your hyperbole, they really don't give
concern me. I know haters wanna murder me. I burn them to the 3rd degree. I bring that heat, man. You dudes is wing bro. Bieber in the same pose like Ellen is Kango. Beats I bang those like flows in the hallway. King talk hard like Iron Mike Ringwald. The champ is here. Godspeed, the camp is here. Now that the rain is gone, I can see it crystal clear. Things ain't what they appear. On the road I steer, and cowards get caught up in the lights like deers. I shine.
So when the Easters finally got arrested, I didn't know when it was going to happen or if it was going to happen or where it was going to happen. I was not being kept in the loop. It was right out, school was getting out. Jill and Kent had gotten arrested, and I was finally, off the hook.
Sir, did you knowingly participate in a scheme with your wife to frame Kelly Peters?
No.
I thought I was doing a lot for my family and for my son. I really love my wife and I want to do anything for her. I care about her enough to put my own needs, I guess, below hers. You do crazy things for love, I think.
It was weird. It was crazy to hear that a guy of that stature would have gotten involved in something like this. But I think where it all went wrong for him is when it came to his wife, he was just weak. He did what he was told. And that's not to excuse his behavior. It's not to say he didn't know what he was doing. He knew full well what he was doing. He knew better. But in an effort to placate his wife, who was the mastermind of this whole crazy scheme, he did it. He followed through with it. And he thought he was going to get away with it.
For someone that doesn't know, what's the definition of cuckold?
Kent Easter and Jill Easter worked together with this cuckold defense to try to ensure that Kent escaped criminal consequences. Why? Because they knew if he got convicted, he'd lose his bar license. He would lose his ability to make all that money and support the family.
This is a case of a trusting husband, no more, no less. But it's also a case that sadly, as we've all learned after the fact, about a dishonest wife.
It came out during the criminal trial that Jill Easter was having an affair with a firefighter.
He testified that he knew his wife was having an affair. It was essentially, he was in a cuckold relationship. She ordered him around.
This was his own defense lawyers putting this stuff up. These racy text messages, these X-rated emails about this affair. And it was all laid bare for the public to see.
Hi, my name is Sean, auditioning for fireman/Jill's lover.
While they were doing surveillance, they noticed a suspicious male walk up, kind of looking around, looking at the detectives that were in undercover cars. Made him pretty much figured out they were detectives, something's wrong. Quickly turned around and walked away. And shortly after, they saw Jill Easter run out of the house in lingerie and then run back into the house. And the detectives realized they were probably compromised. It's then that kind of triggered the search warrant service at the house. And then one of our detectives followed that male who left and realized that he was there to have an affair with Jill.
Jill Easter was having a torrid affair with a firefighter.
We found out he was a firefighter. He had been having an affair, romantic relationship with Jill for I think about 2.5 years. He was in love with her.
Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
There were other of her friends that were involved. There were some other of his firefighter friends that were involved. And it would happen when Kent would go to work. He was very cooperative with us from the very beginning. He ultimately did some covert calls for us, trying to get Jill to talk. He also agreed to wear a wire to meet with Jill at a nearby park.
Because they were calling me and asking me all these questions about the school. And I'm like, what's happened to her? Tell me. You didn't hurt some girls? I don't know. They won't tell me. But they kept asking me questions about the girls. You should know. You should know. I know you would. I know you would never do anything. You know it. Then why are they asking me questions? You think I know? I'm waiting for someone to help me. I'm losing everything here. I don't know. Well, if you haven't done anything wrong, then you should be fine. I am not going to be fine. Do you understand me?
Kent Easter, his whole defense that his criminal lawyers came up with was he didn't know what he was doing. He was just following orders. So they just tried to generate sympathy. This guy's beaten down. He's getting cheated on by his wife. He's humiliated.
You're going to see how the Easters went after this poor lady over this incident, even though nothing happened to their child.
We basically had a strong case. The only way they thought that they could defeat the evidence that we had was to claim that Kent Easter did not know what was going on. He's a lawyer with a lot of experience, blindly followed her lead and called the police.
When we heard that Jill was going to finally show up, we were excited to see what she was going to do.
When Jill Easter took the stand, the first thing she did was brag about how accomplished she was and about her educational pedigree. She said, I went to the best law school of anyone in this room, which included the judge. That's how she started off her testimony.
It was just crazy times 1,000 every single time. And another time she showed up, there was a bunch of whispering going on.
Jill Easter had already pled guilty to the charges. They were going to call her, I think, to somehow take the rap for everything. And then the trial just got weirder.
They were discussing something, and Rob turned to me and said, we're going to not talk to Jill today because she apparently needs an interpreter. And we were like, okay, well, she's deaf.
She showed up, feigned that she was deaf, even though at no point of any interaction with police or anyone did she ever claim to not be able to hear.
I'm not sure why she did it. Maybe to buy extra time to come up with answers, maybe to try to generate some sort of sympathy with the jury. But all that went out the window when she was in the hallway at some point later after her testimony and was talking perfectly normally to her husband, and the jury saw it all in the hallway.
The man she was having an affair with told us absolutely she's not deaf.
It was so crazy that the defense ended up not calling her at all because it became so weird and circus-like.
Well, I think the jurors found it offensive. I mean, in addition to everything else in this case that was offensive, that was just one more log on the fire.
Kent and Jill Easter were charged with felony false imprisonment. They were charged with 2 counts of conspiracy and conspiring to have her falsely imprisoned. It was important for me to have felony charges because when you're a lawyer, I mean, you're supposed to protect people and help people.
Chris Duff, the DA, he always had my back.
They harassed this poor woman for 6 months, sued her. They knew she had no money. They knew she couldn't defend herself against a lawsuit against, these 2 lawyers. I mean, they harassed her and mentally broke her down. They should be disbarred. These people should not be allowed to practice law.
He had their number. I felt safe with this man.
Jill Easter served 120 days in jail. Ken Easter was given 180 days.
It's my understanding that the Easters got divorced shortly after the criminal trial and are still living in Orange County. I know that Jill Easter's changed her name like 3 separate times. I don't know what her name is now.
You pled guilty to what?
It's not a drug charge. It's something like restricting the freedom of another.
Meaning that you planted the drugs.
Okay.
Ken Easter hired one of the most high-priced, high-powered criminal defense attorneys in the county. A lot of good that did him. He ended up losing. So he tried a different approach in my case, in the civil case. In my case, he tried to portray himself as woe is me. I'm poor, I'm broke, I've already been punished enough, and he chose to represent himself.
I was being prepped to come face to face with Kent Easter. He was going to represent himself. And that was something I was really terrified by.
A person who represents themselves has a fool for a client. Again, Kent Easter was a partner at a major firm, probably had a dozen tailored suits at home. He showed up in our civil case wearing this ratty blue sweater.
He didn't have a belt on. His pants were falling down. He was dressed like Mr. Rogers.
With basically his pockets turned out, trying to cry poor. We've been punished enough and we're broke. We don't have any ability to pay. You shouldn't award punitive damages. And as part of that, at one point, told the jury that Jill Easter was on food stamps. She was living in a $4 million mansion in Newport Beach at the time. During my closing argument in this trial, I couldn't help it. I had to bring it up to the jury. I said, look at him. He's wearing the same blue sweater every single day, trying to have you believe that he's broke. Don't you believe it? And the jury didn't.
A warm-hearted PTA mom from Irvine, California, framed by scheming, vindictive parents. A jury earlier this month awarding her $5.7 million in damages.
So Kelly's rich.
A judgment is only as good as someone's ability to pay it. The only source of money that we would have would be Kent and Jill Easter themselves, and they did their best to squirrel away and hide their assets. In fact, right after he was arrested, Kent Easter gave his house away, his multi-million-dollar Irvine mansion, to his father-in-law. Fortunately, we were able to go get that house, have it sold, and the proceeds were used to compensate Kelly and her family. It was nowhere near $5.7 million, unfortunately.
I paid off my attorneys. I got everyone paid off, which felt really good because I had a team of people holding me up the whole time. And they got paid, and that was important to me.
I do think justice was served. Not only for Kelly and her family, but also punitive damages. You know, because it's not just about compensating the family, it's also about punishing Kent Easter and Jill Easter.
So are you sorry for your part in all of this? Even though you maintain you didn't know what you were doing, are you sorry for what you did that set this all in motion?
There's too many parts to that question I can't answer.
One of the things that really has stuck with me about this case and about these two is their just complete and utter lack of remorse.
Even after pleading guilty, there was never any acceptance of responsibility. There was no apology to Kelly.
Don't you think you'd feel better if you just said, you know what, I did it, I screwed up, I regret it, I'm sorry? Wouldn't that feel good just to say that?
Is this a therapy session or a deposition?
It's hard to describe. One of the weirdest cases I've ever encountered. I mean, usually there's a motive. People need money. Someone gets stabbed or shot in a moment of heat of passion, which is not excusable, but at least understandable. Here, there's nothing to understand.
And the things that they did in this case just really blew our minds.
He goes and does this thing that's clearly illegal. I guess I'm wondering about why he would do that.
We had a break in the deposition, and I had bagels, I had coffee, and we were just like old chums. And I asked him, I said, hey, man, off the record, like, dude, why? There was a moment where he leaned forward, he wanted to unload, he wanted to tell me. And then he caught himself, and he stopped himself, and he didn't. And that's, honestly, that's a mystery that I don't think will ever be solved, is the why.
Why did they continue to take it so far?
I guess it seems extreme.
My guess is that this personality type often got what she wanted.
Yeah, it's very eye-opening.
Are they crazy? Yes. Is Anahita right? Can you defend them? No, you can't.
It's mind-blowing and beyond anyone's capability of ever understanding. I was vindicated. That's a good feeling, especially against people who think they're better than you or smarter than you. I mean, do they still think they're smarter than me?